What is going on, guys? Today we're going to talk about creating and using a class. Just as we define a function with the keyword def, we define a class with the keyword class. The brackets will be left empty for now. The purpose of the init method is to define the attributes of an instance of a class every time we create a new instance. This basically creates and defines the properties of an instance. Passing the self argument to the init method and any other method in the class is important. Once an instance of the class is created, the self parameter can be thought of as giving the instance access to any methods, which are functions that we will define within the class. An instance of a class can be thought of as an object that follows the blueprint that we laid out with the class. The information related to an instance or its attributes are defined the same way for every instance of a class, even though the values may be different. Remember, since a class is like a blueprint, an instance of a class is some object that has all the attributes that we defined in the init method, or in other words, it follows the blueprint for how its information is structured. Accessors, also commonly referred to as getters, are functions meant to retrieve information about the attributes of an object. Remember that any method we define within a class must take the self parameter, even if when it's called, we don't pass any arguments into it. Sometimes accessors are defined so that they print and display information. Other times they're defined so that they return information. When they're defined such that they return information, remember to include the self prefix. When accessing attributes of a class within a class, you must include the self prefix. It takes care of scope issues and gives every method in the class access to the attribute's value. Mutators, also commonly referred to as setters, change some information about attributes of the object or influence behavior of the object. In more complicated examples, mutators will update or change the attributes of the class. Remember to use brackets when calling methods because they are technically functions just defined within the class. Since classes have specific pieces of information and specific behaviors, they can effectively model real-world scenarios.